you, Dean. Thank you. I'll have to raise this back up when Matt gets up here. Okay, so most of you know me. I'm Abbey Klaassen. I'm the associate publisher at Ad Age. And I'm going to be up here for like 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues to wrap things up because I'm going to run and try to catch a 12:30 flight. So I apologize. I'm not meaning to be rude when I leave the stage mid-presentation. Wanted to talk just a little bit about what's new and what's next at Ad Age. We've had a lot of change over the last few years. A couple years ago now, 18 months ago or so, we introduced a new design, print design for Ad Age. Earlier this year, we introduced a new web redesign. You saw our change in frequency, which we introduced earlier this year, so that we could really spend our resources on what we believe are sort of the broader range of products that the market is demanding from us these days. So we're gonna talk a little bit about how all of that comes together. One thing that hasn't changed. Here's one thing that did change last week, but one thing that hasn't changed is, despite the fact we have more competition from more places, and I think that's a pretty universal feeling among us editors at Ad Age, we are really the leader that remains focused on this industry. And I think that's a really good way to think about Ad Age. We are the industry's resource, and there's no confusion about who our audience is. So I would point to this week's cover. Hopefully you've seen it. There's cover wraps on the front of that issue out there, which we love, Jim Whalen. But take a look at this week's cover, and our feeling about this is this is a cover that not everybody in the world is going to understand. But the people who are our audience in this industry are going to get it, and they're going to appreciate it. And that's what we're trying to do, is really speak to the industry. Our audience, most of you know this already, but just to remind you, about 48% of our circulation are advertisers and marketers. 46% of our circulation are agencies, media companies, and other folks who really support advertisers and marketers. We reach about 100 of, well, we do reach 100 of the 100 leading national advertisers. Because we talk to the whole ecosystem, sort of the whole advertising and marketing industry, not just the marketers, or just the agencies, or just the media companies, or digital companies, we like to think of our audience as sort of a community. And as part of that, we sat down and we thought about what is Ad Age when we do our job best. And it's about making the industry smarter. And we thought a lot about how we could leverage that. And we introduced this concept earlier this year called membership. It's sort of rethinking subscriptions. I want to take a pause here and note, we're not trying to be an association. Membership to us is about being a member of the Ad Age community. And what we created through membership and various levels of membership are more opportunities for the folks who are really deeply embedded in this community and who care very deeply about getting smarter about marketing and making the marketing industry smarter. We wanted to give them opportunities to get closer to Ad Age. And if you go to adage.com/membership, you can see a little bit more of what's on this slide here. I think it's on this slide. I can't really see. And this is a really important initiative for us. We're launching additional content, additional events and connection opportunities for our higher level members. My role has changed a little bit over the past 3-4 months to add audience development, which is this membership initiative, in addition to the editorial oversight. Another interesting new role I have is working on some of our content strategy studio work. So this is where we're creating content for clients of ours. This is a great example from Playboy, a program we did for them that spanned online, print, research, and an event. Many of you in this room know Jackie Gadeen. Jackie is retiring from Ad Age shortly, and well, I guess in a couple weeks. And she had previously overseen both our sales efforts and the custom content, or the content strategy studio. So The content strategy stuff is now becoming part of my role. We have a wonderful woman named Jackie Ramsey, who's our new sales director, who I'm sure you'll all meet at some point. And of course, you know my buddy here, Jim Whalen, who's working on a lot of this content stuff as well. So that's another new part of my role. And I think sort of an interesting opportunity is we've covered the rise of content marketing and how advertisers are really trying to create longer, ongoing connections with people and think more in a content mindset. We're seeing that from our own clients, and this is an area where through a custom content team, we're developing more assets and different types of assets. Speaking of our community, another area I wanted to highlight is Ad Age on Campus. This is our sort of get them while they're young strategy. As many of you maybe you recall, or you have young staffers who have recently graduated, Ad Age is required reading in a lot of the marketing and advertising programs in college. And so we launched a pretty specific program just for those classes and the professors who are leading those classes called Ad Age on Campus. There's a professor classroom edition, which involves everything from a curriculum. We have a textbook that accompanies this program, as well as weekly quizzes. And then there's just student editions for students who want to get a leg up once they're out in the working world by knowing all of the stuff that's in Ad Age. And we are working on expanding Ad Age on Campus in some pretty interesting ways that I just wanted to highlight for you, since I know talent is always such a huge part of growing the advertising industry. So Ad Age on Campus, we're gonna introduce a virtual career fair in early 2015. And leading up to that, we're producing a series of webcasts. And we've worked with some of the folks in this room on some of these webcasts, and we'd love to work with more of you on both that and the virtual career fair. We did a webcast back in February. We had about 700 registrants, about 20% participation rate on the live webcast. And Ed Frankel from MediaCom was part of that. It was really great to get his perspective, and Bart Cleveland from the Job Propulsion Lab. The one we have coming up, which is May 28th, Belle Frank from Y&R is participating and going to talk about sort of the on-ramp to your advertising career. So I know there are specialists in all of your agencies who work with young talent, and we'd really love to bring you into Ad Age on Campus in some pretty interesting ways. The other thing we're working on is how do we hang on to those young agency staffers, those young talent once they've graduated. And we've launched a few things to that effect. Media Buzz, which is sort of a media agency-oriented pub quiz type program that Nat over here oversees, is another interesting way we're trying to sort of get the young folks in the agencies excited about the industry. And of course, you're probably familiar with our Young Creatives Cover Contest, which we just closed entries and are actually in the process of judging winners this week. So the final thing I'm going to share with you, and then I'm going to bring up a couple of my colleagues, is creativity. Creativity, hugely important part of Ad Age. And we launched this feature around the time of the redesign. And I've shared this with some of you that, to be perfectly candid, it wasn't quite ready for prime time, but we've made a lot of improvements to it, and I think we're feeling pretty good about it now. We want to invite the marketers and the agencies to contribute to this global creative database that we have on creativity by uploading your own work and some of the great stuff that your agencies are doing. So we've tried to make it easy for you to do that, add credits, that sort of thing, and increasingly our creativity editors are going to be tapping into this database to find the editor's picks type work. That won't be the only way they'll be finding editor's picks, but increasingly that's going to become pretty important to them. So I would encourage you to check out our new feature on creativity. And then, of course, as the global database of great work grows, we hope it's incrementally useful to you. So with that, I want to introduce a couple of my very important colleagues here. Matt Quinn, our executive editor, and Nat Ives, our deputy managing editor, to talk a little bit more about what's new at Ad Age. Thank you.
Abby, good luck catching your plane. So, I think, what do we have? So, we've got new faces, new roles, raise it for me. Okay, I'm taller than Abby. So new faces, new roles. New faces mine. I joined Ad Age about a year ago, and I came over from the Journal, and it's been quite a ride in the first year. There's been plenty of action to really dive in. I've met a lot of you and look forward to meeting more of you. Other people that have recently joined us, there's Mark Bergen, who covers mobile devices, carriers, and advertising. He was most recently freelancing out of India, so he's bringing this great global perspective to our coverage, and he had been freelancing for the Times and the Journal. There are a few others on here that we're going to go into a little bit more depth on later, including Nat Skid, who is not on this one, but he's our newest hire, a video producer. Even closer? Okay, sorry. And on here is Alex Kantrowitz. He's had been covering publishing technology as a freelancer at Ad Age, and we brought him on full time to cover ad tech and marketing technology. He was one of our B2B reporters. I'll go a little bit more in depth on B2B later. And Seth Feinberg, who came over from Source Media, where he had been at Accounting Technologies, also a B2B reporter. And at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Nat to talk about his new role, and as well as some of the reporters on his staff.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I know and have met and worked with a lot of you over the years as well. I recently expanded my staff responsibilities to include the agency beat. I am not the new Rupal, unfortunately, but I am learning about agencies and directing coverage, working closely with our expert beat reporters, who are still the ones that you guys know and hopefully love or respect at least. One of those obviously is Alex Bruel, who I think you all know well. She's our lead agency reporter and the real kick-ass expert on the beat. We also have on the next slide a couple others that you might know. You've got Maureen. She's doing Midwest and now West Coast agencies and an expansion of what she's covering. Shireen is doing the East Coast agencies. And of course, everybody, it's a team. So, when something big that crosses lines breaks, we all work together. If you can't find one of them, find another, or find me, and we'll get it done. Also up there, we've got Michael Sebastian, partly because I still have responsibility for the media beat, but also because the media beat is changing. He's our publishing reporter, and came on initially focused on a beat we've had for a long time, magazines. But that's changed and grown. He's covering publishing, he's covering content, he's covering content marketing. So he's really actually now at the thick of some very important areas for both us and we think you. So get to know his name and reach him when it's appropriate as well. And then, as promised, Nat Skid, who came on last week, 2 weeks ago. He's a video producer for us, and he's going to be doing all kinds of projects. He's there because video has become so much more important for us than in the past. Now, we're trying to do this carefully and intelligently and not waste anybody's time, which is what video can be when you do it for the sake of it. Now, it's often quicker to scan headlines than watch a 2-minute or 4-minute, God forbid, video. But there are a lot of opportunities to take readers places they couldn't go, like the AOL Newfront, which he produced a great, really slick video on, and to really capture some of the figures of the industry. And I think that actually, we're not there yet. We're going to get to a project that Nate worked on for us that's live on the homepage. But here, let's talk about B2B for a moment.
Thanks. As I mentioned before, we took over B2B coverage back in January. We absorbed our longtime sister publication, B2B magazine. It's I think it's been a natural fit for us. I think we've got 2 dedicated reporters, Alex Kantrowitz and Seth Feinberg. We have a newsletter that goes out every Thursday, and it has a prime placement on our nav bar, so you can easily find all of our B2B coverage. Again, I think it's been a natural fit for us. A lot of great work coming out of the B2B space. You've seen work from IBM and GE and a lot of B2B companies becoming a lot more B2C with their branding initiatives. I'm thinking of Intel and Cisco. These are well-known brands that people really don't go out and buy themselves. And I think there's a lot to learn from B2B marketers for B2C, and a lot of what B2C does is applicable to what B2B does now. We're also sensitive to the fact that they have their own special needs, especially on the technology side. Which is why we have Alex Kantrowitz. We're looking at things like marketing automation, and again, we want to get our coverage as wide as possible to make sure that B2B marketers feel included in our B2C coverage, and that our B2C coverage is practical for what they're doing as well. And some of the franchises that came over from B2B that we're keeping that I think are worth mentioning. Top B2B agency, which is part of A-List this year. You have already seen that. B2B top agency report that's going to come out, and the B2B Fact Pack that's publishing next week. And I think that's the top 100 agencies, or top 50 by revenue. Top digital marketers, we're bringing over that franchise that's traditionally been B2B, but we're also going to look at B2C. This is very people-driven, so we'll talk a little bit at the end, but I would say if you've got people you're working with that are doing incredible work on the digital marketing side, we want to hear their stories. Sometimes they can be a little shy about tooting their own horn, so you might want to do that for them. Another one is B2B's Best. It's an event that's done in December, celebrating the best ads and marketers. So you should watch for a call for entries on that, probably later in the summer. And at this point, Nat's going to talk about our video initiatives in a little more depth.
Yeah, so what you see here is a video that's on the homepage today. This is Keith Reinhardt talking with Judy Pollack, one of our longtime editors, about winning the McDonald's account back in the day, coming up with "You Deserve a Break Today." And the video is actually really well produced. I mean, he's amazing, by the way. I don't know if any of you guys, how many of you have seen him or worked with him in years past, but his recollections are amazing, and the stories he tells justify the use of video and moving picture and seeing a real person talking to you. But it's also a good excuse to get the old vintage McDonald's work into the spot. So this was on our homepage for, the beginning of the day. I bet we've moved it out of the hero position now, but it's an example of what we're doing both in video and around our coverage of the Mad Men era, which is something we like to get into whenever the show is on the air. So there's going to be more to come. We've got some really great figures lined up, and it's going to be, I think, a great series of video, really human, emotional, almost videos that make video worth it. At the same time, of course, all of our staff are empowered to do video on their own. We use a program called Videolicious that some of you may or may not know. And that makes it very easy to edit together videos on your smartphone or your iPad. So yesterday, for example, Natalie Zamuda went to an event where Coca-Cola was showing off a licensed nail polish line. And she got a manicure in what looked like Coke can metal to me, Diet Coke can metal. And so she's putting together a Videolicious of that herself. We don't need to send Nate with all of his equipment and the lighting rigs to everything we do. So where you guys see opportunities for video, please do suggest them to us. Our individual reporters are perfectly capable of capturing great B-roll, doing quick interviews. You'll just see that we try to keep it quick because everybody's time is limited, and we're not going to ask anyone to watch a 10-minute video usually. So look for more on that from us and come to us with your ideas. Departments.
So Abby had mentioned the redesign that we had initially done a while ago, but then as you probably know, this year we changed our frequency. We have been 45 times a year. We changed to 25 times a year. No, we're not bi-weekly. It's based on the lunar cycle now. We've been looking at what the marketplace wants and when we think we can have the most coverage coming out most consistently, and are building around some of our franchises and having bigger, more in-depth issues. But it gave us the opportunity to look at the magazine as a whole and in terms of the departments up front, we tried to add a little bit more cohesiveness to what we were doing within our news pages. As Abby had mentioned before, we know who our audience is, but we cover a lot of different things for them. So we've broken it up into marketing news, agency news, digital news, media, and global. And we just want to add a lot of cohesiveness of what we're capturing, so people can really feel full as they're going through the magazine. We've also added standing departments in the back. We've taken what we have been doing with CMO strategy, and we've wanted to broaden that, and we've called that the playbook. And we're still doing the CMO profiles. That's a core part of our coverage, but we also want to look at this as kind of we want to tackle the CMO's career path. We want to look at them as a person that has become more important, that's become more strategic. We want to look at how people have gotten to this part of their career. We want to look at the new skills that they need and how people are developing that, and also how they're developing the next generation of leadership. That becomes very important to these multi-billion-dollar global companies. Once you reach CMO, you really start looking at the bench that you have behind you, and that's become an important part of our coverage. Then we've developed I'm not sure it's up here, but okay, it's on this. Another section is lifestyle and culture. This is a fun industry. We want to celebrate that. We want to look at your agencies and what makes them unique. What's part of your culture? What are the symbols? What are the anniversaries? What are the things that make you special? How do you build your teams? How do you inject creativity into what happens at the agency? And we think that this is just a great way for us to engage the industry, because as much as we want to break news and we're going to look at the industry critically, we also feel very much a part of the industry, and we want to celebrate all the things that make it special. And again, in order to do that, we're looking at, we have another section called Creativity and Technology. We call it CAT internally. We want to look at who's using technology in a creative way in their work, who's using it to become more efficient, who's adding it into their creative. And that kind of brings us to the next part, which is bringing creativity into greater focus. One thing we've reintroduced is the ad review that's being done by our managing editor, Ken Wheaton, and we have a few other initiatives that Nat will talk about now.
I would start by saying broadly, we recognize how important creative is. I mean, it's really the core product in the business, and we want to elevate that more and more visibly, more holistically at adage.com than we had been doing in the past. So this speaks a little bit to the online redesign that accompanied or predated, I think, a little bit, the most recent print redesign. We've got a huge module on the homepage that I really like that shows off the creativity editor's picks of the day. That's 3 picks of the day, and it's easy to scroll through them. And there's really great work, and just from a perspective that we're interested in, it does great in terms of traffic. We're getting a lot of interest from readers from industry and from outside, I think. When a Van Damme ad or any other number of creative executions really take off, that's a global look. There's a lot of great work being done around the world, and we want to call it out. Outside that module, which you scroll down a little bit to find, we're also pinning a creativity piece of work, usually close to the top of the homepage. I hope you've all had a chance to spend some time with the redesign, which is relatively new still. There's a lot of good stuff below the fold. If you keep scrolling, you'll get to the most read lists, the stuff we're reading around the web, sections, special coverage that we're highlighting this week. That's the upfronts, the creativity module. There's really just a lot of reasons to keep going. But we're also managing the top, hopefully a little bit more productively for you guys than we were in the past. We've got a river on the right side that just flows with whatever's most recent. So there's always new news in the top right of the website. But we've also got a few big units at the very top when we're often using one of those for a creativity slot or a B2B slot, because that's so important to us as well. And then if you go just below the fold, we've got a bunch more stuff that we're featuring so that it doesn't fall off the homepage as soon as the next 5 drips of news come through. So it's productive to scroll down at least a little bit, and we think a lot. And we hope that creativity is a much more prominent part of that experience as a result of that. I'm actually going to also take this opportunity to plug our Instagram feed, which we've been doing a lot more with. Katie is here. We had talked about this. And we do want to follow up on Katie's idea of turning over the Instagram feed to a different agency for a week from time to time, an Instagram takeover for an agency out there. We think that'll be really fun. We've got to work out the logistics and so on. But in the meantime, we also have a very active Instagram. I mean, it's showcasing some of the great creative work we were just talking about, some of the great visuals that we produce for our own issues, and of course, photos from events we attend. A lot of that is the upfronts. I'm actually, if you're going to indulge me, I'm going to take a picture from the stage so that I can add the pictures of you guys to our Instagram feed later. And then please check it out. It's Advertising Age, all run together. And while I do that, you can talk about what's up.
All right, well, I think we have to wrap up. Here's a kind of a rundown of some things to keep an eye out for. If you have reporters that you usually pitch, you can go to them for all of these special issues and ask them questions. We should have calls for entries for some of them. And if you don't have a reporter that you usually work with, you can find Nat or myself. Thanks, guys. And if you have any questions after this, feel free to grab us. We'll hang out for a little bit.